what I began to see was they would be okay. Everything for most families would pretty much, they would have two homes. They would get used to it. They would, overall, they would start to adapt and do pretty well. But as I started to work with other families where the parents were having a hard time adjusting and there was more conflict, the kids that I would see were having a much more difficult time. And so, just helping them with coping skills and helping the parents as well. Here are some things to help reduce, the child's anxiety. And a lot of it came down to the parental conflict that was going on. And there's a lot of small changes that parents can make that can help reduce that anxiety. And so in working with children, that became one of my, I would say, led me down to the path where I am now and why I have all these certificates. That's why everyone asks me, why do you have all these certificates? Well, because it led me to the passion of how can I help kids the most? And what I learned is you have to look at it as a collaborative approach in looking at the whole entire family system versus there's only one thing I can do with a child. I can do therapy with them all day long, but if I can't help the parents and the system that they're in, their family, and change that, then I can't help the family and the environment that they're in.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's one passion we share. I often will say the trauma for kids is more in how the divorce is handled, not the divorce itself. So it sounds like from your experience, when you started out working with kids and you were seeing this kind of recurring issue where there was a high conflict situation, that you decided, I think I need to shift away from working so much with kids and focus more on the parents and co-parenting so that they are minimizing the trauma for their kids.
Absolutely. And research wise too, I started doing research on it too. Just to kind of make sure, I wasn't developing my own theories, but also, researching it. And research shows that kids overall with divorce are actually very resilient when parents go through a divorce, as long as their parents can find a good way to communicate and have a healthy relationship after. It's when parents aren't able to do that. That's where kids struggle the most and have more lasting, long impacts. So the earlier intervention, the better outcomes there are. So that was another thing that I felt like was really important for kids. So I do still work with kids. And part of that, I also always include the parents in working with them.
Have you ever seen situations where kids maybe exhibited really bad behavior when there was more disjoined co-parenting or, more of a high conflict kind of relationship between the co-parents and that translated to poor behavior in the kids and then saw it improve where they got better and the child got better? Have you ever seen that happen?
Absolutely. It's amazing how you can just take one thing, such as saying, I always tell parents, just try for 1 week to say hi to each other during transition and watch what a difference it can make for your child. And even though it seems really silly, it can really make a big difference for a child. It's kind of looking through a child's eyes and their perspective. So, and I've seen kids, unfortunately, they can get misdiagnosed on their behaviors when they're just reacting to the stressors of what they're going through. So that's another thing that I talk to parents about, just kind of educating them that the behaviors may not be something that, as a diagnosable behavior, because they can get wrongly diagnosed when it's truly a reaction to the environment versus something being wrong with them.
Yes, you make a very good point. So oftentimes parents will say, my kid's behaving really bad. This is not my child. I don't know why this kid's behaving this way. Will you fix them? When really it's how the parents are interacting and what's going on in the home that's causing the child. Because kids are really so intuitive. And even when we think we're hiding things from them, they totally pick it up. And then they become the sponge of all this, toxicity in the house or in the family system.
Absolutely. And they're smart. I mean, they're very they perceive things. That's why I a lot of times, even when I do the co-parenting piece or parallel parenting, even as a parent coordinator, a lot of times I ask to check in with the child, and I love to hear their perspective. And I tell them, hey, I'm here to help your parents. What can I do to help you? You know, what do you think that they need? And it is amazing to see how excited kids get. They're like, finally, someone's helping my parents. You know, I'm always the one that has to get help. Now they're getting help. And so they love to give me a list of, well, they need to do this, and they need to do that. And it's just like almost a relief for them to like know that it's almost a very, I think, a way it's therapeutic for them.
Yeah, they feel heard and validated by somebody.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay. So what are some of the tips that you think are just kind of no-brainer? Most people would think of as no-brainers, but you find people really struggle with when they're trying to when you're trying to help them smooth out their co-parenting?
I would say that the biggest area where people get confused is co-parenting and parallel parenting. And so what I always tell people is, I don't ever expect you to, like, co-parenting does not mean that you are going to be best friends and, right off the sunset and everything is going to be wonderful. Like, I never expect that. But it's just a way of, being child focused, streamlining communication and talking about your child, and really looking at it as a business relationship. Even though I know it sounds strange because it's your child to think about your child as a business, but it's separating the emotion. And it's, looking at your child as like, we've got to focus on them in that way. It's the best way to separate the emotional side. So to me, that's one of the biggest things in terms of parents and co-parenting.
So kind of being willing to set aside your feelings for that other person and make it be about your child, put them at the forefront of your, yeah. Absolutely. Okay. If you can have that shift in your mind, then maybe you'll be willing to kind of breathe through some of the emotions that are coming up when you have to interact with your ex.
Yes. And then there's always the option of parallel co-parenting, which is just more, minimum contact. So there are different forms.